Have you ever felt like the world around you is moving forward, but you're stuck in a moment that feels too heavy to carry? Maybe you've lost the person who shared your life for decades, the one who knew your favorite coffee order, the way you liked your toast, or even how you hummed when you were deep in thought. Losing a spouse is one of the hardest things anyone can go through, and if you're watching this, chances are you've been there, or someone close to you has. You're not alone. Studies show that grief doesn't just affect our hearts. It impacts our brains, our bodies, and even our immune systems. For example, research from the National Institutes of Health found that people who experience the death of a spouse have an increased risk of health issues, including heart disease and depression, especially during the first year after their loss. But here's the good news. There are ways to heal, rebuild, and thrive. In fact, many people discover new strengths they never knew they had. In today's video, we're going to explore 5 life-changing lessons for thriving after the death of a spouse. These aren't just ideas, they're practical steps backed by science and real-life stories that prove healing is possible. And trust me, you'll want to stay until the end because the last lesson might be the most powerful one yet. Before we dive in, I want to make something clear. This video is for informational purposes only. It's based on publicly available research and interviews with experts, but everyone's journey with grief is unique. Always talk to a healthcare professional if you need personalized advice. Grief isn't something you fix overnight, and what works for one person might look different for another. So take what resonates with you and leave the rest. Now let's start with the first step, a lesson that might seem simple, but is absolutely transformative. It's about giving yourself permission to grieve fully. When someone loses a spouse, there's often pressure from family, friends, or even themselves to move on quickly. But here's the truth. Healing takes time, and rushing it can actually delay recovery. Dr. Catherine Shear, a leading expert on grief at Columbia University, says that allowing yourself to feel the pain instead of avoiding it is crucial for long-term healing. She calls this process adaptive grieving, where you acknowledge your emotions without judgment. Let me share a story. A woman named Margaret once told me she spent months trying to act like everything was fine after her husband passed away. She kept up appearances for her kids, went to church every Sunday, and smiled through family gatherings. But inside, she felt numb. Then one day, she decided to sit down with a journal and write a letter to her late husband. She poured out all her feelings, her sadness, her anger, her gratitude, and afterward, she said she finally felt lighter. Writing became her outlet, her safe space to process everything she'd been holding in. You don't have to write letters if that's not your thing, but finding a way to express your emotions is key. Some people find comfort in talking to a therapist, joining a support group, or creating art. Others turn to music, gardening, or simply taking long walks in nature. The point is to let yourself feel, not to push those feelings away. And while you're doing that, remember this. Science shows that emotional expression triggers the release of oxytocin, the so-called love hormone. Oxytocin helps reduce stress and promotes feelings of connection, even if the person you're missing isn't physically there anymore. Think of it as your body's way of reminding you that love never truly disappears. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, but what if I cry all the time? Won't that make me weaker? Let me reassure you, it won't. Crying is actually a sign of strength. A study published in the Journal of Social and Clinical Psychology found that crying releases tension and can improve mood over time. So if tears come, let them flow. They're part of your healing journey. Once you give yourself permission to grieve, the next step is learning how to honor your loved one's memory in a way that brings you peace. This is where we'll pick up in the next section. We'll talk about how keeping your partner's spirit alive, without letting it overshadow your own life, can help you move forward in a healthy, fulfilling way. Stay tuned, because this is where things get really meaningful. Honoring your loved one's memory is such a delicate balance, isn't it? On one hand, you want to keep their presence alive because they were such a huge part of your life. On the other hand, you don't want to feel like you're stuck in the past, unable to create new memories for yourself. The key here is finding ways to celebrate their life while also making room for your own growth. Let me share something that might surprise you. Research from the University of California, Berkeley, suggests that rituals, whether big or small, can play a powerful role in helping people cope with loss. These don't have to be formal ceremonies. They can be as simple as lighting a candle on special occasions, planting a tree in their honor, or cooking their favorite meal once a month. Rituals give structure to our grief and help us process emotions in a tangible way. Take my friend Evelyn, for example. After her husband passed away, she started volunteering at the local library, something he had always encouraged her to do, but she'd never felt ready for. Every Saturday morning, she'd dedicate a few hours to helping kids pick out books. She told me it made her feel connected to him, like she was living out the dreams they'd shared together. But here's the beautiful part. Over time, those hours at the library became more than just a tribute to him. They gave her a sense of purpose and introduced her to a whole new community of friends who appreciated her wisdom and kindness. That's what honoring someone's memory should ultimately do. It shouldn't trap you in the past, but instead inspire you to live fully in the present. And this brings us to an important question. How do you find that balance between remembering them and rediscovering yourself? One approach is to focus on legacy projects. These are activities or creations that reflect the values or passions your spouse cared about. For instance, I know a man named George who turned his late wife's love of painting into a scholarship fund for young artists in their town. Not only did this keep her passion alive, but it also allowed George to channel his grief into something positive. He said working on the project gave him a renewed sense of meaning, and even helped him meet others who shared his wife's artistic spirit. If setting up a scholarship sounds too ambitious right now, don't worry. Legacy projects don't have to be grand gestures. You could start by organizing old photos into a scrapbook, writing down stories about your life together, or even continuing a hobby you both enjoyed. The goal is to create something that feels meaningful to you, something that honors your spouse without overshadowing the person you still are. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, but what if I'm not ready to try something new yet? That's perfectly okay. Grieving isn't linear, and there's no timeline for when you should feel ready to take these steps. What matters most is being gentle with yourself during this process. Speaking of gentleness, let's talk about another crucial aspect of healing, self-care. This might sound obvious, but after losing a spouse, many people put their own needs on the back burner. They prioritize taking care of others, kids, grandkids, neighbors, or simply assume they'll bounce back on their own. But neglecting your physical and emotional well-being can make grief feel even heavier than it already is. Here's a fact that might resonate. A study published in the journal Psychosomatic Medicine found that chronic stress, from unresolved grief, poor sleep, or lack of exercise, can weaken the immune system over time. That means taking care of yourself isn't just about feeling better emotionally. It's also about staying healthy physically. So how do you practice self-care when everything feels overwhelming? Start small. Maybe it's going for a short walk around the block each day, or scheduling a weekly phone call with a close friend, or treating yourself to a relaxing bath with candles and soothing music. These little acts of kindness toward yourself add up, trust me. And here's a tip I wish more people knew. Laughter really is medicine. Yes, it might feel strange to laugh after such a profound loss, but humor has incredible healing power. A study from Loma Linda University showed that laughter reduces stress hormones and boosts endorphins, which can improve your mood almost instantly. So watch that funny movie you used to enjoy together, or spend time with people who make you smile. It's not about forgetting, it's about giving yourself permission to feel joy again. As you begin to take better care of yourself, you might notice something interesting happening. You start craving connection. Loneliness often hits hardest after losing a spouse, and learning how to rebuild your social circle is one of the most transformative steps you can take. This is where we'll transition next, to the importance of staying socially engaged and how relationships can help you heal. Because let's face it, life doesn't stop when we lose someone we love, and neither should we. Rebuilding your social circle after the death of a spouse can feel daunting, especially if you've spent decades sharing your life with just one person. It's natural to wonder, how do I even start? Or will anyone understand what I'm going through? But here's the truth. Human connection is one of the most powerful tools for healing. And science backs this up. Studies from Harvard University show that strong social ties are linked to better mental health, longer life expectancy, and even a lower risk of chronic diseases like heart disease and dementia. Let me tell you about Janet. a woman I met at a grief support group a few years ago. After her husband passed, she found herself withdrawing from friends and family. She said it felt easier to isolate than to explain why she wasn't over it yet. But one day, a neighbor invited her to join a book club. At first, Janet hesitated. She worried she wouldn't fit in, or that people would expect her to be cheerful when she wasn't. But she decided to give it a try, and it changed everything. The book club gave Janet something to look forward to each week. It wasn't just about reading. It was about laughter, shared meals, and deep conversations. Over time, those connections helped her feel less alone. She told me, "I realized I didn't have to get over my grief to enjoy life again. These women accepted me exactly as I was, tears and all." If joining a book club doesn't sound like your thing, don't worry. There are so many ways to reconnect with others. You could try volunteering, taking a class, or attending community events. Maybe it's as simple as inviting an old friend over for coffee, or reaching out to someone you haven't spoken to in years. The key is to take that first step, no matter how small it feels. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, but what if I'm not ready to meet new people? What if it feels too soon? That's completely valid. Rebuilding relationships takes time, and there's no rush. Start where you are. For example, you could begin by nurturing existing connections, calling a sibling, spending more time with your grandkids, or even writing letters to old friends. Sometimes, simply staying in touch can remind you that you're still part of a larger web of love and support. Another challenge many people face after losing a spouse is finding motivation to keep moving forward. Grief can zap your energy and make everyday tasks feel overwhelming. You might find yourself asking, "What's the point?" Or, "Who am I without them?" These questions are normal, but they don't define your future. Here's where mindset comes into play. A study from Johns Hopkins University found that maintaining a sense of purpose, even in small ways, can significantly improve both mental and physical health in older adults. Purpose doesn't have to mean curing cancer or writing a novel. It can be as simple as learning a new skill, helping someone else, or setting a personal goal, like walking a little farther each day. Let me share another story. Paul, a man in his mid-70s, lost his wife of 50 years and felt like his world had ended. He stopped exercising, cooking, and even answering the phone. Then one day, his granddaughter asked him to teach her how to bake his famous apple pie. Reluctantly, he agreed. That single act reignited something in him. He started baking more often, not just for his family, but for neighbors and friends too. Eventually, he joined a local senior center where he taught cooking classes. Paul told me, "I didn't think I had anything left to offer, but teaching others made me feel alive again." You see, purpose isn't something you find, it's something you create. Whether it's mentoring younger generations, pursuing a hobby, or giving back to your community, finding meaning in your days can help you move through grief and rediscover joy. Of course, staying motivated isn't always easy, especially when grief feels like a heavy weight on your shoulders. On tough days, it helps to remember that progress doesn't happen overnight. One strategy I've seen work wonders is breaking big goals into tiny, manageable steps. Instead of saying, "I want to get back into shape," try telling yourself, "Today I'll walk for 5 minutes." Small wins build momentum, and before you know it, those 5 minutes turn into 10, then 20. And let's not forget the importance of patience, with yourself and with the process. Healing isn't linear, and setbacks are part of the journey. Some days will feel lighter, while others might feel impossibly hard. That's okay. Be gentle with yourself, and trust that every step you take matters. As we wrap up these lessons, I want to leave you with one final thought. Thriving after the death of a spouse doesn't mean forgetting them or replacing their place in your heart. It means carrying their love with you while also embracing the beauty of the life you still have ahead. In the next section, we'll bring everything together with some final words of encouragement and a simple challenge to help you take action today. Because healing isn't just about surviving, it's about thriving. As we come to the end of this conversation, I want to take a moment to reflect on everything we've covered. Losing a spouse is one of the most profound challenges anyone can face, but it doesn't have to mean the end of joy, purpose, or connection in your life. We talked about giving yourself permission to grieve fully, honoring your loved one's memory in ways that bring you peace, practicing self-care to nurture your mind and body, and rebuilding your social circle to combat loneliness. And finally, we explored how finding purpose, even in small, everyday actions, can help you move forward with hope and resilience. Let me remind you of something important. Healing isn't about leaving your spouse behind. It's about carrying their love with you while creating space for new experiences, relationships, and dreams. You are still here, and your story isn't over yet. In fact, some of the most meaningful chapters of your life may be just beginning. Now, let me share a powerful insight from Dr. B.J. Miller, a palliative care physician and advocate for living well despite loss. He says, grief isn't something you get over. It's something you integrate into your life. What he means is that grief becomes part of who you are, but it doesn't have to define you. Instead, it can coexist with moments of laughter, love, and fulfillment. This perspective has helped countless people transform their pain into purpose, and it can do the same for you. I also want to highlight a study from the University of Michigan that underscores the importance of staying active, both physically and socially, as we age. Researchers found that seniors who maintained regular social interactions and engaged in meaningful activities had better cognitive function and reported higher levels of happiness compared to those who withdrew from the world. So whether it's joining a club, volunteering, or simply calling a friend, staying connected matters more than you might realize. Before we wrap up, I'd like to leave you with a simple challenge. One small step you can take today to honor yourself and your journey. Maybe it's writing down 3 things you're grateful for, no matter how small, or reaching out to someone you haven't spoken to in a while. Perhaps it's signing up for that class you've been curious about, or taking a walk around the block just to feel the fresh air on your face. Whatever it is, make it something that feels doable and meaningful to you. And remember, healing isn't a solo journey. Lean on the people who care about you, whether it's family, friends, or support groups. If you're looking for resources, organizations like the Compassionate Friends and WidowNet offer incredible communities for people navigating similar experiences. Don't hesitate to seek professional help if you need it. A therapist or counselor can provide invaluable guidance during tough times. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Which of these lessons resonated most with you? Are there any steps you're planning to try? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one, and I'd be honored to hear your thoughts. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more content on navigating life's challenges with grace and strength. Sharing this video with someone who might need it could also make a world of difference. Together, we can create a community of support and encouragement. Finally, I want to leave you with these words. Your life still holds infinite possibilities even after loss. You've already shown incredible strength by making it this far, and I believe in your ability to keep going. One day at a time, one step at a time, you've got this. Here's to living your best life, no matter your age or circumstances. Thank you for being here, and thank you for trusting me with your time. Until next time, take care of yourself, and remember, you are never alone.